You don't wake up one morning and realize your marriage is dead. It dies in silence, piece by piece, behind everyday smiles and empty "I love yous." And somewhere along the way, I stopped being her husband and became just background noise. We'd been together 12 years, married for 9. Her name's Lauren, the kind of woman who could walk into any room and turn every head without even trying. She had this effortless confidence, this way of making people orbit her like she was the sun. And for a while, I was one of them. I loved her like gravity. But that was a long time ago. I don't remember the last time she looked at me the way she used to, not with passion or affection or even irritation. Now it's just apathy, indifference, the cold kind that makes you feel like a stranger in your own bed. It wasn't always like this. There were good years. Hell, great ones. But lately, things had spiraled. She stopped touching me. Not just sexually. Even the casual stuff. Brushing her fingers across my arm. Leaning her head on my shoulder while we watched a movie. All gone. Sex went from spontaneous to scheduled to extinct. And it wasn't just about sex. It was the silence. The gaping quiet that filled our home like a fog. The way she'd answer with one-word replies. How she started locking her phone, sleeping in late, working extra hours without notice. I asked. Once. Maybe twice. Got a cold, "You're imagining things," and a look like I'd just accused the Virgin Mary of stealing. But I wasn't imagining it. I could feel it in my gut. In the way she stopped wearing her ring. In the way she smiled when she texted someone. A smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. And still I stayed. Because that's what you do when you believe in vows. You hope. You try. You give benefit after benefit until there's nothing left to give. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday. Funny how something so mundane can fracture your whole world. She was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone with that distant look in her eyes. I stood in the doorway, just watching. She didn't even notice me at first. When she finally looked up, she barely flinched. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't even put the phone down. "About what?" "Us. This. Whatever this is." She gave this little scoff. Not even laughter, just a puff of condescension. "There's nothing to talk about, Adam. You've known this was coming." I blinked. "What the hell is this, Lauren?" She finally put the phone down. Folded her arms. "It's over. I'm done pretending. I haven't loved you in a long time." That hit like a slap. "You could have said something," I whispered. "I just did." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You could have said something before you started checking out. Before you started disappearing in your own goddamn house." "I didn't disappear," she said coolly. "I evolved. You stayed the same." I felt heat rising in my neck. "So this is on me?" "It doesn't matter," she said, grabbing her bag from the counter. "I'm done playing the martyr. You can stay here or go. I don't care. But me? I'm done. I need air." Then she turned, halfway to the door, paused, and tossed over her shoulder. "Disappear, Adam. Do us both a favor." It was casual, offhand, like tossing a dirty towel to the floor. Disappear. That word landed with a sickening finality. But it didn't break me. It ignited me. I stood there, in that kitchen we remodeled together, under those lights we picked out at the hardware store, and I realized something. She thought she was ending the marriage on her terms. She thought she got the last word. She had no idea what she had just started. I didn't scream. I didn't chase her. I didn't beg. I just stood there, staring at the door long after it slammed shut behind her. And I decided that if she wanted me gone, then I'd disappear, not into nothingness, but into something that would haunt her. I'd let her feel what it's like to be truly invisible, to wonder, to hurt, to feel like the world she built on lies was crumbling beneath her, just like she crumbled everything we had. This wouldn't be a dramatic outburst. No, this would be quiet, calculated, surgical. She wanted freedom? Fine, but she'd choke on it. That night, I packed a small bag, just enough to keep her guessing. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam any doors. I simply vanished from her narrative. And as I drove through the city lights, with no destination in mind and years of anger boiling under my skin, I made a promise to myself. She started this, but I'd finish it. The first night after I left, I slept in my car. Well, if you could call it sleep. More like drifting in and out of restless flashes of memory. Lauren's voice echoing in my ears. That cold final word disappear, gnawing at my chest like an animal. I woke to the taste of stale coffee and the aching regret of still caring. I had nowhere to go, not really. Our condo was hers now in all but paperwork. Every wall had her fingerprints, her perfume. Even the goddamn fridge magnets reminded me of her. I didn't want to crash with friends. I didn't want to answer their questions or fake strength I didn't have. So I drifted, drove without purpose, ate gas station sandwiches, thought too much, thought about how I wasted years with a woman who stopped seeing me as a man, who stopped seeing me at all. It was on the third day, while walking along the edge of the river downtown, that I saw her. Samantha, Lauren's younger sister. I almost didn't recognize her at first. Her hair was longer than I remembered, the color darker, her body, Kavya. Her coat clung to her in all the right ways, hugging her hips as she leaned over to pick up a coffee she'd set on the bench beside her. She was watching the water quietly, not like someone passing through, but like she came there to feel something. I should have kept walking, but fate, or stupidity, or maybe something more primal, pulled me toward her before I could second-guess it. Samantha? She turned, surprised. Then her eyes widened. Adam. Her voice was warm, breathless even. God, what are you doing here? I shrugged, trying to seem casual, but the truth was written all over me. The scruff on my face, the bags under my eyes, the weak old hoodie that still smelled faintly of our old sheets. She noticed, of course. Her brow furrowed. Jesus, are you okay? I sat down beside her without asking, hands tucked deep into my pockets. Lauren told me to disappear. Samantha was quiet for a second. Then, of course she did. That caught me off guard. You're not surprised? She scoffed softly. I've known my sister all my life. She's always been like this, cold when she doesn't get her way. She likes control. Loves it, actually. Her voice was different from Lauren's, softer, not as sharp-edged. But there was fire under it. Not anger, exactly. Something quieter. Resentment long buried. She's always treated me like her understudy, Samantha said, staring out at the water. Never good enough. Never as smart. Never as pretty. Never as successful. Even when we were kids, she'd remind me I was the mistake, the second draft. I turned toward her, studying the tired lines near her eyes. She didn't look like the girl I remembered from holidays and family cookouts. She looked worn, like someone who'd learned to hold herself together with invisible stitches. I had no idea, I said. She met my eyes. No one does. Lauren's good at keeping people where she wants them, in orbit, close enough to admire her, too far to know the truth. A silence settled between us, and in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks, maybe months. Warmth. It was subtle. No grand gestures. No violins. Just warmth. The feeling of being seen. Heard. Understood. She reached out, almost instinctively, and touched my hand where it rested on my knee. The touch was innocent. But it wasn't. My heart kicked in my chest like it had forgotten how to beat properly. And judging by the way her fingers lingered, she felt it too. Samantha looked down quickly, withdrawing her hand. Sorry. That was... No, I said. Don't be. She turned toward me, something unreadable in her expression. You look like you haven't slept. I haven't. You shouldn't be alone right now. I didn't respond, but the silence said enough. She looked around, as if making a decision she'd been circling since the moment I sat down. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here, she said. They've got terrible coffee, but the couches are warm. You want to sit somewhere that doesn't smell like piss and wet leaves? I laughed, actually laughed. That sounds incredible. She smiled, and it wasn't the practiced smile Lauren wore at galas and charity events. It was crooked, real. We walked side by side, her shoulder brushing mine now and then as people passed. It wasn't intentional, but each time it happened, something inside me tightened. The coffee shop was quiet, dimly lit. The kind of place with too many books on the walls and not enough customers to care about conversation. We sank into a corner booth, and before I could even sip the burnt coffee, she was asking me questions. About Lauren. About how long I'd known. And then she started sharing. Her own pain. The boyfriends Lauren had stolen. The way their mother always compared them. The cruel jokes Lauren used to make when no one else was around. People think she's perfect, Samantha said bitterly. She always made sure of that. And if you ever challenged that illusion, she'd burn you for it. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. That shared pain, the cracks Lauren had left in both of us, started to bind us together like glue. Somewhere in the middle of all that talking, the line blurred. between sympathy and something else, between shared pain and desire. She looked at me the way Lauren hadn't in years, like I was something more than tolerated, more than convenient. She leaned in closer when I spoke. She bit her lip without realizing it when I ran a hand through my hair. And when she laughed, not politely, but fully, it did something to me. It stirred something I thought was long dead. By the time the coffee went cold, I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Not in my hurt. Not in this city. Not in this war, Lauren had quietly declared. I stood to leave, unsure what to say. Samantha reached into her purse and handed me a slip of paper, her number, written hastily in blue ink. Don't go back to her, she said softly. I looked down at the digits, then back at her. I'm not. The first time I texted Samantha after that coffee shop, I stared at my screen for 20 minutes before typing anything. And then I deleted it, then rewrote it, then stared again. I wasn't trying to be smooth. I wasn't looking to flirt. But something about her made me want to speak, really speak, in a way I hadn't with anyone in years. Could use a distraction. You free tonight? I hit send and immediately regretted it. But she replied almost instantly. Only if it includes terrible wine and venting about your ex-wife. That was 4 nights ago. Since then, we'd met up twice. Once at a dive bar with peeling leather booths and darts that refused to stick. The other time at her place, where we drank red wine out of chipped mugs and watched an old thriller she half remembered from high school. Both nights ended the same way, with long talks, laughter that came too easily, and tension that crackled in the air between us like a held breath neither of us dared release. No kisses, no touches, but the space between us, it was alive. And dangerous. Tonight, she invited me to her apartment again. Said she had leftover Thai food and a bottle of something red and cheap. I wasn't sure if I should go. Part of me told me it was wrong. The other part told me it was inevitable. I showed up anyway. She opened the door barefoot, hair in a messy bun, tank top clinging to her skin like it missed the dryer cycle. The look she gave me wasn't flirty. It was open, vulnerable, like she'd been waiting for me in ways even she didn't want to admit. Hey, I said, stepping inside. Hey yourself, she said, softly, and closed the door behind me. The apartment smelled like ginger and coconut curry, and something vaguely floral, probably her. We sat on the floor with the food between us, Thai cartons scattered like puzzle pieces. I told my mom I saw you, she said after a while. Oh, she asked if you looked broken. I gave a hollow laugh. What did you say? I said you looked like someone who finally stopped pretending. That hit harder than I expected. Samantha watched me closely. You don't have to keep your guard up around me, Adam. I've lived in Lauren's shadow my entire life. I know what she's capable of. I know how she makes people feel small just by existing. I know the way she talks to people she doesn't respect. She used to respect me. I murmured. She used to need you, Samantha corrected. That's different. We went quiet for a while. The only sound was the faint hum of her fridge and the rustle of wind outside. Then, gently, she asked, Did you love her? I nodded. Yeah, I really did. I gave her everything. My loyalty, my time, years of my life. I built everything around her. And I never thought I'd say this, but I think the part that hurts the most isn't that she stopped loving me. It's that she didn't care that I still did. Samantha didn't respond immediately. She reached over and took one of the spring rolls, bit into it thoughtfully. I was engaged once, she said finally. I blinked. I didn't know that. No one really does. He was older, charming, the kind of guy who looked good on paper and made my mother beam at dinner parties. What happened? He cheated. More than once. And Lauren, she knew. She knew? Samantha nodded slowly, eyes distant. She found out early on. Told me later, long after it was over, that she didn't tell me because she thought I needed to learn the lesson myself. My jaw clenched. That's not protecting someone. That's cruelty with lipstick. A bitter smile curved her lips. Story of her life. She leaned back against the couch, looking up at the ceiling like she might find answers written in the plaster. I've always envied her, she said. Her confidence, her presence. But I hated the way she used it. She had this ability to make you feel lucky just to be tolerated by her. Even as her sister, I spent half my life asking for scraps. There was a heaviness in her voice. Something I recognized. I know what that's like, I said. To feel like you're not enough for the person who should love you most. Our eyes met. And that was it. Something shifted. The air changed. The room felt smaller. Warmer. Like everything around us had blurred, and the only clear thing left was her. I didn't touch her. Not yet. But she leaned toward me, ever so slightly, and I felt that heat again, that pull. The way her lips parted, just barely. The way her breath hitched when I looked at her mouth too long. I shouldn't be feeling this, I said. But you are, she whispered. Her hand brushed mine. Delicate. Hesitant. I didn't pull away. You ever feel like everything you've held back is trying to escape all at once? I asked. All the time, she replied. There was a long silence. The kind where things don't need to be said out loud because they're already understood. I should go, I said, voice hoarse. You could stay, she replied, almost inaudibly. Just to talk. But we both knew it wouldn't just be that. Not forever. I stood slowly, unsure if I was doing the right thing or just delaying the inevitable. I don't want to hurt you, I said. Samantha looked up at me, her eyes shining. You won't, she whispered. I've been broken before. This feels different. I nodded, heart pounding, and turned toward the door. My fingers lingered on the handle longer than they should have. Part of me wanted to stay. Part of me knew I'd be back. As I stepped into the hallway, I looked back once. She hadn't moved, just sat there, watching me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. I felt wanted. And that was how it started. Not with sex, not with kisses, but with pain shared like a secret between two people who'd both been burned by the same flame. I told myself 100 times that I wouldn't be that man, the one who traded spite for satisfaction. Revenge, in my head, had to be smart, slow, surgical. Make her feel the absence. Make her wonder. Let that gnaw at her until the life she thought she'd engineered for herself started to wobble. That was the plan, or the justification. Then one night, in Samantha's dim kitchen, the plan showed its weaknesses. We'd had too much wine and too many confessions. The kind that leave you raw and open, like a door that won't click shut. Her laughter had loosened something inside me, and her serious moments stitched me back together in ways I hadn't asked for. I watched her across the counter as she wiped a dish with slow, absent movements. Her forehead creased the tiniest bit when she concentrated. There was a softness there I'd never seen in Lauren. It made me ache in a way that felt almost tender. You okay? She asked without looking up. Yeah, I lied. Just thinking. Dangerous pastime, she said, smiling, then met my eyes. The look she gave me was not pity. It was recognition, the way you look at someone who's standing on a fracture line and you can see the hairline crack in their armor. The night shifted after that, not like a sudden storm, but like gravity nudging us. A song came on that neither of us recognized, but both of us hummed along to, and somehow the space between our conversation narrowed. I found reason to touch her hand, to steady my wine glass, to move a stray lock of hair behind her ear. Each touch felt rehearsed and reckless at once. Her skin was warm. Her fingers fit under mine as if they belonged there. She leaned in closer. Don't make promises you can't keep, she whispered. I'm not trying to promise anything, I said. My voice sounded foreign to me, too steady, too certain. I'm trying to be honest. And what's that? That I'm tired of pretending I don't want something that feels like life again. There it was. The confession tasted like metal and honey. We both laughed at its ridiculousness, then stopped. My mouth found hers before I'd even properly asked for it. It was hesitant at first, an exploratory thing, lips testing whether the other would pull away. She tasted faintly of curry and wine and something floral, perhaps the perfume she reserved for nights out. It was intoxicating. The kiss deepened. What began as a tentative search turned urgent, desperate even. Her hands went to the back of my neck, fingers threading into the stubble I'd stopped shaving. I rested my palm on the small of her back and felt the soft curve of her spine under my hand. There was a moment, impossible to articulate, where everything in the world narrowed to the sound of breathing and the press of two bodies deciding whether to cross a line they both knew existed. When we tumbled onto her couch, clumsy, breathless, laughing at ourselves for the cliché of it all, restraint unraveled. Clothes came off not with ceremony, but with impatience, with the kind of hunger born out of months of neglect and the heady adrenaline of doing something forbidden. Sex wasn't pretty that night. It was messy and forgiving, more about reclamation than performance. It was two people using each other to seal up old wounds and open new ones. After, we lay tangled under a threadbare blanket, the city noise leaking in through the cracked window. Her head rested against my chest, and I could hear her pulse, a quiet, steady thing that calmed me. I could have sworn, in that small bubble of warmth, that I had found a complicity deeper than I'd intended. I could have sworn that this wasn't just revenge. But guilt arrived like dawn. It spread slow and certain, coloring everything in light that didn't flatter. I thought of Lauren, of the way she'd stood in the kitchen and said disappear like it was the final flourish of a bygone design. I thought of her hands on her phone, her many little disappearances, the life she'd meticulously rearranged to exclude me emotionally. How did taking her sister change that? Did it punish her? Or did it simply prove we were both broken instruments she'd misplayed? Samantha spoke first, voice muffled against my ribs. "Are you okay?" she asked, as if the question would somehow settle the ethics of us. "I don't know," I admitted. I wanted her to hurt, but I didn't realize. I'd want this too. She lifted her head and looked at me with eyes that were suddenly very adult and very soft. "Revenge feels sweet for a minute," she said, "but it's cold the next morning." "You think I did this for revenge?" I asked, half incredulous. "I don't know what you did it for," she said, "but I know why I did it." Her fingers traced lazy patterns over my collarbone. I wanted to prove to myself I could be chosen. Chosen. The word lodged under my ribs like a stone. I had wanted to be chosen by a woman who stopped choosing me. Samantha wanted to be chosen by someone who'd always compared her to a ghost of herself. In between us, the motivations were messy, overlapping, sometimes noble, sometimes petty. We lay like that for a long time, the city ticking beyond the window. I kept wondering which of us was using whom, whether she saw me as a ticket out of being Lauren's shadow, or whether I used her to wound Lauren where she ached most. Maybe both things were true. Maybe all human acts contain a mix of spite and yearning. That night, before sleep took us, Samantha whispered a line that planted a seed I didn't fully notice until later. "If you're gone," she said, "and I'm with you, would she ever forgive herself for losing us both?" I didn't answer because the simplest truth was already forming like frost. She had already given me my doorway out. I had walked through it, and behind me, the house we'd built with Lauren would begin to feel the tremors. But choices have consequences. Crossing that line meant the next steps wouldn't be clean. It meant secrets and half-truths and the inevitable collision with a woman who had never lost at anything she chose to win. It meant risking more than just a marriage. It meant risking the fragile new thing that had started between Samantha and me. And I, who had sworn to make her hurt, now realized the revenge would not end with punishment. It would reshape everything, including my own heart. We didn't talk about it the next day. There was no dramatic morning after scene, no clumsy apologies or grand declarations of guilt. Just the quiet truth of two people who'd crossed a line and, despite everything, didn't want to go back. I left Samantha's apartment before sunrise. The air outside was cool and sharp, carrying that early autumn bite that always hinted at change. As I walked to my car, still wearing the same jeans from the night before, my body felt both lighter and heavier. My mind ran wild with what we'd done, what it meant, and what might come next. I didn't tell anyone. Not my best friend Matt, who would have seen through my half-baked excuses in a second. Not my sister, who had always liked Lauren more than she liked me. Not even my therapist, whose office I hadn't stepped into since Lauren's last business trip 3 months earlier. This, Samantha and me, was something I buried under layers of denial, justification, and heat. A secret lit like a fuse. But secrets, I've learned, don't stay hidden forever. Not when passion begins to erode caution. We became careful, but not careful enough. At first, it was small things. Texts sent too quickly. Smiles that lingered when we crossed paths in public. I still hadn't officially moved back into the condo, and Lauren hadn't asked questions. I stayed vague on purpose. Told her I needed space. That I was figuring things out. She accepted it, or at least pretended to. It didn't occur to me until later that Lauren's silence wasn't peace. It was observation. She was watching, waiting, gathering her own version of the truth. Meanwhile, Samantha and I became artists of avoidance. We met at odd hours, in corners of the city we'd never been seen in before. Motel rooms that smelled of bleach and regret. Bookstores where we pretended to browse while stealing glances from across the aisles. She'd text me photos, her legs in a bath, a note scrawled on her thigh in red lipstick. Mine? And I'd answer the only way I knew how, with late-night visits and long hours spent between her sheets, speaking through touch what we didn't dare say out loud. I didn't know what we were. I only knew what it felt like. The ache when I wasn't near her. The way she touched my face after sex like I was something precious, not broken. The quiet jokes, the teasing, the laughter that replaced the stale silence I'd grown used to with Lauren. It wasn't just about sex anymore. It was sanctuary. And that scared the hell out of me. The whispers started a few weeks in. A neighbor mentioned seeing me near Samantha's apartment complex. "Thought you moved," he said with a sly grin, sipping his beer. "Or did you trade in your wife for the younger model?" I laughed it off. Said I was helping Samantha with something. Family stuff. He chuckled. Didn't push. But others noticed. We ran into one of Lauren's friends at a farmer's market. Samantha was with me, wearing oversized sunglasses and a sundress that should have been illegal. We were standing too close. Our hands brushed too often. And though I quickly introduced her as Lauren's sister, the friend's eyes said everything. Something's going on. By the end of that week, Lauren texted me for the first time in days. "Have you been seeing someone?" No preamble. No pretense. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. And then, like a coward, I lied. "No. Just trying to find some peace." She didn't reply, which only made it worse. At home, when I visited the condo to grab clothes or mail, the air between us was strange. She'd glance at me from behind her wine glass, eyes sharp and calculating. Her makeup was perfect, her hair done even when she didn't have anywhere to go. She was preparing for war, but not openly. No, Lauren never struck head-on. She waited, watched, collected knives. Then came the Sunday dinner. It was Lauren's idea. "A family catch-up," she said. "Just her, me, and Samantha." I should have declined. Every nerve in my body told me it was a trap. But Samantha, ever the provocateur, smirked when I told her and said, "Let's play nice. Maybe she wants to apologize." Apologize? Lauren? But I said yes. Of course I did. Because somewhere, some part of me still wanted to believe that the three of us could exist in the same room without setting fire to the walls. We dressed nice. Not too nice. Casual enough to say I'm fine, but sharp enough to say I'm doing better without you. When Samantha opened the door to Lauren's townhouse and stepped inside, I felt the shift immediately. Lauren looked up from the stove, smile too wide. "Well," she said, eyes flicking from Samantha to me and back again. "You two certainly look comfortable." Samantha didn't flinch. "You said casual." I dressed down. We ate in the dining room, candlelit and far too formal. Lauren asked us questions in that sing-song tone she used when she was lacing the conversation with traps. "How's work, Sam? Still flirting your way through copywriting? How's your living situation, Adam? Find somewhere warm to lay your head." We danced around the truth. Samantha played her part well. Polished. Witty. Just snarky enough to remind Lauren she wasn't the only one who could deliver barbed lines with a smile. But something slipped. Maybe it was the way I reached for Samantha's wine glass by mistake. Maybe it was how she laughed a little too hard at a joke I made. Or maybe Lauren just finally saw it. Her smile faded. Her gaze cooled. And in that moment, I saw the beginning of the end reflected in her eyes. She didn't know what exactly we were hiding, but she knew it was worse than she thought. There's a kind of tension that builds when you're living two lives, a quiet, suffocating pressure. You start to forget what you said to whom. You lie with your eyes more than your mouth. Every glance, every word, every choice is a calculation. How close can I stand to her? How long can I hold her gaze? If I laugh at the wrong time, will someone notice? Samantha and I were getting sloppy. Maybe we'd grown too comfortable in the shadows. Maybe we believed that Lauren would never imagine her own sister could be the other woman. Or maybe, selfishly, stupidly, we just didn't care anymore. Whatever the reason, it happened at her cousin Drew's engagement party. Lauren's family was the kind of family that insisted on gathering for every occasion. Promotions, birthdays, dental cleanings, you name it. This time it was a rented rooftop in Midtown, catered with overpriced hors d'oeuvres and bartenders who hated their lives behind thin smiles. I didn't want to go. Samantha definitely didn't want to go. But Lauren insisted. And Samantha, maybe out of defiance or maybe curiosity, said yes. "I want to see her squirm a little," she said that morning while adjusting her earrings in the mirror. "You sure that's a good idea?" She looked at me through the reflection, a glint of something unreadable in her eyes. Let's call it research. The party was already in full swing when we arrived separately. I came in first. Samantha followed 15 minutes later. It was strategic, but already flawed. Even from across the room, I could feel her. In a sea of tailored suits and cocktail dresses, she was magnetic. Her dress was a dark green that hugged her like it had been sewn directly onto her skin. Her hair was pinned up loosely, curls falling down the back of her neck in a way that made it almost impossible not to look. I tried not to. God help me, I tried. Lauren caught me staring before Samantha even reached the bar. "You've been weird lately," she said, sidling up beside me with a glass of champagne. Her voice was light, but there was weight behind it. Smiling too much. Laughing too easily. It's uncharacteristic. Maybe I'm just happy. Her lips curled slightly. "Since when do you do happy without me?" I didn't answer. Just sipped my drink and watched Samantha from the corner of my eye as she made the rounds. She greeted family, shook hands, kissed cheeks. The perfect little sister, effortlessly sociable. And then, for just a second, we slipped. She looked at me. Not a glance. Not casual. A real look. The kind that bends time. That says I see you. I want you. Right now. And I looked back. It couldn't have lasted more than a heartbeat. But in that heartbeat, the room disappeared. The music faded. The crowd blurred. There was only her. And Lauren saw it. Her jaw didn't drop. She didn't scream or clutch her pearls. That wasn't her style. But I saw the shift in her posture. Her spine straightened. Her eyes narrowed. She turned her head slightly, followed my line of sight, and for the first time, she really saw what had been in front of her all along. Later that evening, after the obligatory speeches and group photos, I made the mistake of slipping away to the far edge of the rooftop, too close to Samantha. Too soon. She found me leaning on the railing, pretending to check messages on my phone. "You okay?" she asked, brushing a hand against my arm as she stepped beside me. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. And that was the mistake. Because across the crowd, Lauren was watching. It was subtle. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch again. But the way our bodies leaned toward each other, the hush in our voices, the magnetic pull we couldn't mask anymore, it was enough. Later, as guests began to trickle out, Lauren cornered me by the elevator. "Had fun tonight?" she asked, her tone deceptively casual. "Sure," I said. She leaned in, close enough that I could smell the sharp citrus of her perfume. "You know," she murmured, "you've never been good at hiding things. Your mouth lies. Your body never does." I stiffened. "What are you getting at?" Her smile was thin. "Let's not insult each other's intelligence." She didn't say Samantha's name. She didn't have to. I stepped back. "Maybe don't throw stones, Lauren. You've got your own glass house to worry about." Her smile dropped for just a second, then came back sharper. "Whatever you think you're doing, Adam, just remember, she will never choose you over me." I didn't respond. Not because I had no words, but because part of me still didn't know if she was right. After the party, Samantha and I met in secret. A parking lot this time. Not romantic. Not planned. "Lauren knows," I said, leaning against her car door. She closed her eyes for a second. "How bad?" She hasn't said anything outright. But she's circling. Samantha bit her lip, stared through the windshield. "Do you think she'll tell the family?" "Eventually." "Good. That surprised me." "Good." She looked at me then, eyes hard. "Let it burn, Adam. Let her world unravel. Even if it takes us down with it." Her voice softened. "You were already sinking, weren't you?" The silence between us was thick, heavy with the weight of choices we'd already made, lines we couldn't uncross. Samantha reached for my hand. And for the first time, I didn't pull away, not even in public. She didn't wait long. It was only 3 days after the rooftop party when I heard the knock. Sharp. Measured. The kind of knock that doesn't ask if you're home. It tells you that you're about to be dealt with. I opened the door of the apartment I was renting on the east side, the one Lauren didn't know about. Or so I thought. And there she was. Lauren, dressed like she always did when she was about to take someone apart. All black. Hair tight. Lipstick sharp. Heels that clicked against the tile like a countdown. She didn't wait for an invitation. She walked past me, perfume trailing like a smoke bomb. "I assume you're not surprised to see me," she said, glancing around. Her tone was light, but her eyes were all fire. "Lauren," I said flatly. "Nice of you to drop in." She turned to face me. "Don't be smug, Adam. You're not good at it." I shut the door behind her. My pulse thumped like a war drum. "You've been watching me," I said. "Stalking, actually. I was being considerate," she snapped. "Giving you space. Letting you lick your wounds." Then why are you here? Because I need to know one thing, she said, stepping closer, her voice dropping to a growl. Who is she? I didn't answer right away. Just studied her face, still beautiful, still composed, but something cracked now. There was fury there. Betrayal. But not the kind that comes from heartbreak. This wasn't about love. This was about ownership. I saw the way you looked at her, she continued. At the party. The way she looked at you. Like she'd won something. Like she was proud. You told me to disappear, I said, voice quiet. I didn't tell you to crawl into bed with someone else. You didn't care what I did. You just didn't want to see it. She blinked, like the words stung more than she expected. Is it serious? She asked after a long silence. Does it matter? It does if it's with someone who thinks she can take my place. I laughed then, short, humorless. Your place? You mean the cold silence? The contempt? The way you haven't touched me in a year unless there were witnesses around? I was your wife, Adam. Yeah, I said. You were. And you made sure I felt alone every goddamn day of it. Her jaw clenched, but she didn't deny it. Who is she? She asked again. I paused. Then, slowly, deliberately, I gave her what she wasn't prepared for. You told me to disappear, I said. I just chose where. She flinched like I'd struck her. You son of a bitch, she whispered. I disappeared into someone who sees me. Who actually wants me. Who doesn't treat me like a fucking inconvenience. Her eyes burned. You don't get to rewrite history, Adam. You don't get to pretend you were some victim in all this. I'm not pretending anything, I said. I was a victim. Of your ego. Your control. Your need to win every argument by breaking me into pieces. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It's Samantha, isn't it? The room fell dead silent. There it was. The real bomb. I didn't confirm it. I didn't need to. Her hand flew across my face before I saw it coming. A hard, clean slap. My cheek stung instantly, but I didn't move. I let her look at the man she had pushed away, one final time. You've ruined everything, she hissed. Our family. My name. Do you even know what you've done? I followed your instructions, I said. You wanted me gone. I'm gone. You just didn't expect me to matter somewhere else. She laughed bitterly, pacing now. This is sick. She's my sister. My blood. You think this is revenge? You think this makes you powerful? No, I said. It makes me free. She stopped pacing. Her arms dropped to her sides, and something in her face faltered. Like for just a moment, she realized the scale of the damage. Not what I'd done, but what she'd set in motion with her own indifference. I gave you everything, she said, voice trembling. No, I said. You gave me rules. Expectations. Deadlines. You gave me a script and punished me every time I improvised. And she swallowed. She let you rewrite it. She helped me burn it. Lauren stood there for a long moment, like she was calculating whether to scream, cry, or throw something. But she did none of those things. Instead, she composed herself, wiped the corner of her eye with one perfectly manicured nail, and said, Fine. Fine. I echoed. You want to torch your life? She said. Go ahead. But don't expect a single olive branch when it comes crashing down. You've made your choice. Just don't come crawling back when she gets bored of playing second wife. I'm not the one who plays games, Lauren. That was always you. She smiled. It was bitter, beautiful, poisoned. Then she turned and walked out. No dramatic slam of the door. No last word. Just silence. But in that silence, I felt something settle. Something final. It wasn't over, not yet. The explosion was still coming. The betrayal had only just begun to unravel. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt seen. And that, more than anything, terrified her. It happened on a Thursday. Not some dramatic holiday. Not a symbolic anniversary. Just a plain, gray-skied, ordinary Thursday that would become anything but. Samantha and I had grown comfortable with danger. Complacent, even. After the confrontation with Lauren, we told ourselves the worst had passed. We thought she'd retreat. That her ego wouldn't let her admit how deep the betrayal had gone. But we underestimated her. We mistook silence for surrender. That morning, I met Samantha at her apartment. We hadn't seen each other in a few days, and the moment I walked through the door, everything felt like gravity had shifted back into place. She was barefoot, hair wet from the shower, wearing one of my old t-shirts that she never gave back. We didn't speak right away. We didn't have to. We made love slowly, like we were trying to remind each other that this thing between us wasn't just born from anger or pain. It was real. It meant something. It was different from that first night, and every night after had peeled away another layer of guilt, of revenge, until all that was left was a kind of raw, defiant intimacy. We lay in bed after, tangled in each other, half asleep. That's when the front door opened. Not knocked, not rattled. Opened. I froze. Samantha sat up slowly, confusion flickering across her face. Did you lock the door? I thought I did. Then came the voice. I'd recognize it anywhere, even wrapped in venom. Wow. Lauren. She stepped into the doorway of the bedroom like she was walking onto a stage. No one screamed. No one moved. It was one of those surreal moments where your brain refuses to process what your eyes are screaming at it. She looked at Samantha, naked except for the sheets, my shirt bunched at her waist. Then she looked at me. Of all the people, she said, her voice breaking on the edge of disbelief. My sister? Samantha grabbed the blanket tighter, suddenly looking far smaller than she had just moments before. Lauren, she began. Don't, Lauren snapped, eyes flashing. Don't you dare speak. I sat up, legs swinging off the bed. Lauren, just shut up. It was the kind of voice that didn't raise in volume, but could still cut flesh. She took a step into the room, and I could see she was shaking. Not crying, vibrating. Like her body didn't know which emotion to commit to. You disgusting fucking traitors, she whispered. No one responded. Because what could we say? This wasn't some secret text she'd found, or a rumor, or even a suspicion confirmed. This was proof. Her husband, in her sister's bed, wrapped in her sister's skin, in her goddamn shirt. You two deserve each other, she hissed. And I hope it destroys you. Samantha tried again, voice quiet. I didn't mean for this to. Shut your fucking mouth, Sam. Lauren roared. You think this is just a mistake? An accident? This is months, isn't it? How long? Huh. I opened my mouth, but the truth landed first. 6 weeks, Samantha said softly. Lauren's eyes went wide. Then she laughed. One sharp, humorless sound. 6 weeks. And what? You've been playing house ever since. Meeting in shitty motels like a soap opera? Her eyes found mine again. Tell me, Adam, was it worth it? Yes, I said, without hesitation. The word hung in the air like smoke. Samantha's head snapped toward me. Lauren went still. Just still. Like that answer broke something she thought was still unbroken. And then she turned to leave. Lauren, wait, Samantha called after her. She didn't. The door slammed hard enough to shake the picture frames. Silence fell again. But this time it wasn't peaceful. It was apocalyptic. Samantha buried her face in her hands. She's going to tell everyone, she said. I nodded. Probably. My parents. Her friends. My coworkers. She'll twist it. She'll make me look like a monster. I touched her shoulder. You're not a monster. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. No, I'm just your revenge, right? Her words hit like a slap. That's not what this is, I said. Isn't it? There it was, the doubt. The fear we'd kept at bay for weeks. The possibility that this whole thing had been nothing more than a weapon aimed at Lauren's heart. That we'd mistaken fire for love. I stood, pulled on my jeans, trying to think clearly. We knew this day would come, I said. I thought we'd have more time, she whispered. But time, like secrets, has no loyalty. By that evening, the fallout had already begun. My phone lit up with missed calls from friends, cousins, even Matt. Texts ranged from vague confusion to flat-out fury. You hooked up with her sister? WTF, man. Tell me this isn't true. Jesus, Adam. I mean, damn. But it was Samantha who took the real blow. Her mother called her a whore. Her father, normally calm, calculated, left her a voicemail saying, I don't know who you are anymore. And I don't want to. Lauren made sure to call every mutual connection, told them her version, how her husband betrayed her, how her little sister seduced him. No mention of the months of coldness, of the disappear that started it all. We were villains, adulterers, tabloid trash without the fame. But the worst part? The silence from those we thought might understand. There were no allies, no sympathy, just judgment, just the long, slow exile. That night, Samantha curled up beside me on the couch, face pressed into my chest like she was trying to disappear into it. Everything's gone, she whispered. Everything I built. I wrapped my arms around her. No, I said. Not everything. She didn't answer. But she didn't let go either. The first shot wasn't fired by Lauren. It was her mother. A Facebook post, passive-aggressive in tone, but razor-sharp in implication. Disappointed doesn't even begin to cover it. When those closest to you betray your trust, it makes you question everything. Family should never cross certain lines. Some wounds don't heal. It didn't mention names. It didn't have to. The comments exploded like wildfire. Sympathy, outrage, thinly veiled gossip. Samantha's name came up by the second comment. Mine was there by the fourth. By the end of the day, we were unofficially excommunicated. Lauren didn't need to lift a finger. Her family did the dirty work. Friends, cousins, aunts we hadn't seen in years. All of them took sides, and not ours. Samantha sat on the edge of the bed that night, her phone glowing in her hand, jaw clenched as she read through message after message. God, they really think I seduced you, she muttered. Like I slithered into your life just to ruin her perfect marriage. They don't know the whole story, I said. They don't want to know, she snapped, tossing her phone aside. Lauren's always been the golden one. The one with the good grades, the perfect skin, the expensive career. I was always the messy one, the backup singer. Now I'm the homewrecker. I moved to her, sat beside her, reached for her hand. You're not. She looked up at me, eyes glistening. Then why do I feel like one? There was no easy answer. Because the truth was messy. Complicated. We had broken something sacred, and no amount of explaining could make it clean again. Over the next week, it escalated. Samantha's parents stopped answering her calls. Her sister, Jessica, the youngest of the three, texted her only once. I don't know who you are anymore. And honestly, I don't want to. At the next family gathering, a cousin's baby shower, Lauren made sure we weren't invited. Photos circulated online, tagged and filtered, Lauren front and center with her perfect smile and carefully curated grief. People rallied around her, comforted her, declared her strong for enduring what we'd done to her. Meanwhile, we stayed in the shadows. My own friends didn't know what to do with me. Matt called once, voice awkward. Dude, Lauren told people some heavy shit. I mean, her sister? You couldn't find someone else to piss her off? It wasn't about pissing her off, I said quietly. It wasn't a stunt. Then what was it? I didn't know how to answer. Because how do you explain that something born in pain can turn into something beautiful? How do you tell someone that the love you found in your wife's sister didn't feel like betrayal? It felt like rescue. I didn't try. I let him hang up, and he didn't call again. Every phone call became a landmine. Every family thread we used to be part of turned into a whisper network we were no longer welcome in. Samantha started sleeping with the TV on. The noise, she said, helped drown out the silence. I started waking up in the middle of the night with the distinct, nauseating feeling that we were losing something bigger than either of us could carry. One night, I opened my email and found a message from Lauren's father. Subject line, shame. No body text. Just an attached photo, one of the three of us at a wedding years ago. Lauren in the middle, smiling. Samantha on the left, arm looped through mine. Back then, the touch had been innocent. Forgettable. Now it was a curse. I stared at the photo for a long time before deleting it. At dinner a few nights later, Samantha pushed her plate away and sighed. I think I should move out. The words struck me cold. What? Not because I don't want this, she said quickly, but because it's getting too loud. Every time I check my phone, there's another text from someone telling me I'm a disgrace. I can't go anywhere without looking over my shoulder. I need to breathe. I nodded slowly. Okay, but not away from me, right? She met my eyes. I don't know. That silence between us, heavier than any insult Lauren could have thrown. I reached across the table, took her hand. We were broken long before we found each other. I said, you and me, her and me, you and her. This isn't new damage. It's just finally out in the open. Samantha looked down at our hands, her thumb moving slowly across my knuckle. You really think we make sense? She asked. I thought about everything. The way she looked at me when I was too tired to lie. The way she reached for me in her sleep. The way her voice shook when she was scared, but she never tried to hide it. Yeah, I said. I do. She nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't cry. Just nodded. But the war didn't stop there. Lauren escalated it again. She sent screenshots, private messages between Samantha and me from months ago, to my old boss. Claimed workplace misconduct. Said I'd used company time and resources to arrange secret meetings. It didn't stick, but it shook me. The walls were closing in, and Lauren was lighting the match at every support beam. Then came the invitation. A family mediation, organized by Lauren's parents. Not for reconciliation, for show. To divide lines. To assign blame. I told Samantha we didn't have to go. She looked at me and said, "Let them see my face." The meeting was brutal. Lauren, dressed in white like a grieving widow, sat with folded arms and blood in her smile. Her parents didn't make eye contact with Samantha. Jessica sat in silence, lips pressed so tight they were barely visible. And we sat there, not as victims, not even as equals, just as the accused. Words like disgusting, disgrace, reprehensible were tossed across the table. No one asked why it happened. No one wanted to hear about the years of neglect. The cruel words. The months Lauren slept with her phone tucked under her pillow, vibrating late into the night. All they saw was a story that made them uncomfortable. Two people who broke their roles. We left the mediation with nothing solved. But we walked out hand in hand. And for now, that was enough. There comes a moment after the dust settles when silence becomes louder than screams. The gossip had slowed. The judgment hadn't vanished, but the volume of outrage had dulled, not from forgiveness, but fatigue. People had said what they needed to say, taken their sides. Now they were just watching from the sidelines, waiting to see how our story would end. Samantha and I, for the first time in weeks, were left alone with the wreckage. No one calling. No family meetings. No surprise attacks. Just us, in the quiet, and the weight of a question neither of us had dared speak aloud. Was this real? Or just rebellion? One morning, I came home to find her sitting on the floor in the living room, legs crossed, surrounded by open boxes. The place smelled like lavender and cardboard. Her phone was face down, ignored. A single framed photo sat on the floor in front of her, one of her as a teenager, standing beside Lauren at a school event. They were both smiling. But Lauren's smile was polished. Samantha's looked borrowed. She looked up as I entered. "I've been thinking," she said. "About everything." I nodded, sitting beside her on the floor. "Me too. I don't regret it," she added quickly, as if she needed to say it before anything else. "I don't regret us. But I do wonder." "What?" I asked gently. Did we find each other, or just use each other to escape her? The question hung in the air like fog, heavy, obscuring. I didn't answer right away, because I had wondered the same thing. When we first crossed that line, it had felt like rebellion, like sticking it to the person who had made us feel small in different ways for years. It felt like reclaiming something Lauren had stolen, self-worth, attention, validation. But somewhere along the line, it stopped being about her. It started being about us. I don't know how it started, I said carefully. Maybe it was revenge at first. Maybe we were just two broken people grabbing onto each other to stay afloat. But now? She looked at me, eyes clear. Now, when I wake up beside you, I don't feel like I'm hiding. I don't feel like a weapon. I feel known, wanted, alive. Her breath hitched. Me too. But that doesn't mean this is going to be easy, I added. We're not a fairy tale. No one's going to cheer for us. We've burned bridges we can't rebuild. I know, she said. I want to choose it. I want to stop running from the fire and walk into something I actually chose. The word choose echoed in my chest, because that's what it had always come down to, hadn't it? Lauren had stopped choosing me a long time ago. She chose her career, her image, her independence, which I respected, even admired, until it became a wall I wasn't allowed to climb. Samantha, for all her faults, never made me feel invisible. She made me feel like a choice. Later that week, she packed up the last of her things from her old place. She had decided to move in with me, not because it was easy, but because it was deliberate. Her name went on the lease. Her toothbrush joined mine. Her books filled my shelves. We were making it real. That weekend, we went grocery shopping together for the first time. A small, mundane thing, but halfway through the cereal aisle, I looked at her comparing ingredients and realized I felt happy. Not euphoric. Not high on adrenaline or defiance. Just calm. We were halfway home when her phone rang. The name lit up on the screen. Jessica. Samantha answered with a hesitant, "Hello?" I couldn't hear the other side, but I watched her face change, from guarded to confused to cautiously hopeful. When she hung up, she looked at me. "Jess wants to meet." My stomach tightened. "Alone?" She said she wants to hear it from me, not from Lauren. We met Jessica 2 days later at a quiet cafe outside the city. She came alone, dressed plainly, no makeup, hair in a lazy ponytail. She looked tired. "I don't want to fight," she said the moment we sat down. I need to understand. Samantha nodded. Ask whatever you want. Was it about Lauren? No, Samantha said softly. Not really. Maybe at first, in some twisted way, but not anymore. Jessica looked at me. You really love her? I didn't blink. Yes. She studied us both for a long moment, then sighed. She's going to hate you forever, you know. I know. She won't forgive you. Either of you. I'm not asking her to, Samantha said. Jessica looked down at her coffee, swirling the spoon. You were always the one who followed her. Did what she wanted. Let her take the spotlight. This is the first time you ever stepped out of line. I didn't step out of line, Samantha said calmly. I just stopped pretending the line made sense. Jessica gave a bitter laugh. I'm not saying I approve. I don't know if I ever will. But I get it. A little. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't absolution. But it was something. By the end of the week, we got 2 more calls. One from my mother, short, clipped, but not cruel. And one from my former coworker Greg, who offered a quiet, I hope you're okay. People don't always know what goes on behind closed doors. The world wasn't cheering for us. But it also wasn't trying to burn us down anymore. Samantha curled up beside me that night, tracing lazy lines on my chest. We chose this, she whispered. We did. Even if it breaks everything. It already did, I said. Now we decide if it was worth it. She looked up at me, something steady in her eyes. I think it is. I kissed her forehead and held her close. And for the first time since this all began, I realized I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was choosing love. Lauren didn't fall apart. Not publicly, anyway. In the weeks following Samantha's move into my apartment, she maintained her image with surgical precision. New profile pictures. A charity gala appearance. A rebranding of herself as a woman scorned but empowered. Starting fresh, she'd captioned a post beneath a photo of her holding a glass of wine with perfectly manicured nails. But behind the curated veneer, she was unraveling. We heard through mutual friends, the few we hadn't lost, that she'd cut off not just Samantha, but nearly everyone who hadn't condemned us outright. She left the group chat she used to dominate, skipped her niece's birthday party, canceled her book club. Her world hadn't just cracked, it had collapsed inward. Still, she refused to speak to me. No texts, no emails, not even the passive-aggressive kind. Until one day she did. It came in the form of a letter. Handwritten. Delivered in a white envelope with no return address. Dropped through our mail slot like a ghost. The letter read, Adam, I suppose I should have seen it coming. You were fading for a long time, and I didn't bother to look closely enough to see why. Maybe I thought I didn't have to. Maybe I thought you'd stay out of habit. Or guilt. Or fear. I don't hate you. I wish I did. That would be easier. But I do hate her. Not because you chose her, but because she let herself be chosen. She knew me better than anyone. She knew what it would mean. And she did it anyway. I don't forgive either of you. But I won't chase you anymore. You disappeared like I asked. Message received. L. I read it twice. Then a third time. When I handed it to Samantha, she didn't speak for a long moment after reading it. Just stared at the signature. I guess that's the end, she said finally. But we both knew it wasn't. Not really. The true ending came a month later. Lauren's mother was hosting a retirement party. Big deal. Lots of extended family. The kind of thing Samantha would have once been front and center for. The youngest daughter with the biggest smile. She wasn't invited, of course. Neither was I. But we went anyway. Not to cause a scene. Not to rub anything in anyone's face. We went because it was time. Time to stop hiding. Time to stop letting Lauren own the narrative. Time to show the people who whispered behind closed doors that we weren't ashamed anymore. When we walked in, the room didn't gasp, but it did go quiet. All eyes turned. Samantha was calm, dressed simply, elegant. I wore a suit I hadn't pulled out since the last family wedding. We held hands, and we didn't let go. Lauren stood near the bar, mid-conversation. She saw us. Her face didn't shift, not at first, but her eyes hardened like glass under heat. We didn't approach her. That wasn't the point. But Samantha made her way to her mother, who looked like she might collapse under the tension. Samantha offered a simple, quiet greeting. Hi, Mom. The woman stared at her, lips pursed, body stiff. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. Hello. Not forgiveness. Not warmth. But acknowledgement. Lauren didn't speak to us that night. But she watched, studied, measured every interaction, every laugh, every gesture. And for the first time, I realized something. She wasn't angry anymore. She was irrelevant. We'd moved on. Truly, finally. Not with cruelty. Not with gloating. Just with peace. A few days after the party, I sat on the balcony with Samantha, drinking coffee as the sun cut through the morning haze. She had her legs in my lap, reading a book, hair messy from sleep. "Do you ever miss her?" she asked suddenly. It wasn't an accusation, just a question. I thought about it. "I miss the version of her that used to love me," I said. "The one that smiled at my dumb jokes. Who danced barefoot in the kitchen. But I don't miss her now." Samantha nodded. "I used to idolize her. Thought she was untouchable. Perfect." "Was she?" "No," she said. "She just knew how to make everyone else believe it." We sat in silence for a few minutes, the kind that's full rather than awkward. "I think we made it," she said softly. "We're still here," I agreed. "You're not angry anymore." "No. Are you?" She looked at me, smile small and sad. Not at her. Not even at myself. "Then who?" She thought about it. "No one." And that, I think, was the real ending. Not the explosion. Not the betrayal. Not even the family war. But the release. Of bitterness. Of guilt. Of shame. Lauren had thought she was writing the final chapter when she told me to disappear. She thought she'd win by erasing me, by stepping over the wreckage. But she hadn't erased me. She'd set me free. And I didn't vanish into nothing. I vanished into the arms of the one person she never thought I could have. The one person she assumed would always orbit her, quietly, obediently. Now Samantha orbited no one. We were free. Not forgiven. Not celebrated. But free. And in the end, that was enough.